Hello all out there in YouTube and welcome to another episode of Horror Talk, the show where I talk about horror, sometimes going on rants, a lot of times going on rambles, and hopefully it's entertaining and coherent. As you can see by the title of this video, today we're going to be talking about Christmas horror movies. We're getting into the holiday season, so many people are going to be talking about Christmas horror movies this time of year, and because I am an incredibly original YouTuber, I want to do the same thing. Yeah, everybody talks about Christmas horror movies this time of year, and I want to play too. But before we get into that, during this time of year, I like to shout out a great organization, the Animal Rescue League of Boston. This is a great organization that does so much for homeless dogs, homeless cats, and various other pets. They do a great job. So I like to shout out this organization. Adopting homeless pets is a cause that I truly believe in. I take care of dogs for a living, and a lot of the dogs I take care of are rescue animals. I just finished up with a golden retriever that was a rescue, and she's a very sweet girl. So yes, this is a cause that I truly believe in, so this time of year I like to shout out the Animal Rescue League of Boston, which is a great organization. I've known a couple of the people who worked there. So I'm going to leave a link down below in the comments section. Please visit their page. If you can donate, that's great. If you can't, I understand. Just share the link if you can. Let's try to do some good for homeless pets this time of year. And on that note, let's get into the murder and mayhem. So, we've come to the Christmas season, and I like Christmas, but I've never been a big Christmas guy. Some of my family is bigger into Christmas than I am. Some other members of my family are not as big into Christmas like I am. And it's a little odd this year because a lot of my family is out of the country this year, so it's kind of hard to celebrate. But I liked Christmas, but I've never been a huge Christmas person, mostly because I think it's lost a lot of what it's supposed to be. You know, it's supposed to be a time of togetherness and giving gifts and, you know, spending time with your loved ones, appreciating what you have during this time of year, and, you know, looking to those who don't have much and showing them kindness. It's all about, Christmas, in my mind, has always been about, or it should be about, showing kindness to everybody. And it seems to have lost what it should be over the years. It's more about getting what you can. It's more about gifts, more about buying stuff all the time. So I felt that Christmas has lost what it should be. I have never been a good person to get gifts for because I never ask for anything. I'm someone who would rather give gifts to people than get gifts for people. It's just how my brain works. But that doesn't mean I don't like Christmas. It doesn't mean I don't like spending time with my friends and family and celebrating with my friends and family because, you know, it's a time to get together with loved ones. But a lot of people do love Christmas, and a lot of people are big into Christmas, and I have no issues with that. But as horror fans, we take part in the holiday as well. There are so many Christmas horror movies out there. Like, the two holidays that are dealt with a lot in the horror genre are Halloween and Christmas. Halloween is obvious why there are so many movies there, because it's meant to be a scary time of year. You know, it's all about, you know, ghosts and goblins and ghouls. Christmas is one of the most popular holidays on the planet and one of the most celebrated holidays on the planet. So naturally, there's going to be movies made around that. I've often wondered, because it does seem that there are more Christmas horror movies than there are Halloween horror movies. Which is interesting. I could be wrong about that, but looking into it, there are so many Christmas horror movies. There are a lot of Halloween horror movies, but it does seem to me that there are more Christmas horror movies than there are Halloween horror movies. If you've noticed that as well, let me know in the comments down below. If you think I'm wrong, by all means, you know, tell me I'm wrong and point me to some more Halloween horror movies. Now, I am one of those people who love to see different perspectives in horror and love to see different I love to see different viewpoints in horror. I love to see originality in horror. So I do wish we could get more horror movies from other holidays, because that could provide, that could bring more originality to the genre, and, that could help expand the genre, which I'm all for. But I'm not going to deny that I do enjoy a good Christmas horror movie. Christmas horror is interesting. I'm not the first person to say this, but it is an interesting contrast. Christmas is known to be the most joyous time of year, and then you take horror and put that into the most joyous time of year, which creates a fun contrast. It also creates a good setting for horror. The main reason why Halloween and Christmas... I think one of the reasons why Halloween and Christmas are good days for horror is because of the aesthetic for both of them. There is so much decorating that goes on for Halloween, and there's so much decorating that goes on for Christmas. And when you picture the two holidays, it instantly creates an image in your mind. It instantly creates an atmosphere in your mind. Halloween, you think of the leaves turning brown and starting to fall from the trees, jack-o'-lanterns glowing all around. There is a coldness and a warmth that can be utilized in movies, not just horror, but it creates a good atmosphere for horror because those images instantly appear in your mind. Which is the same thing with Christmas. When you think Christmas, you think snow, depending on where you live. But there's the idea of snow, lights all over the trees, the cold weather. The trees, have lost all their leaves, so they kind of look dead. It's the time, like in pagan times, they used to celebrate Yule, which was the ending of the year and the days growing shorter and more darkness, and is viewed as a time of reflection and rebirth, which works, another concept that works perfectly for the horror genre. But you have the lights, you have the Santas, all these things. When it comes to winter, there's a coldness and a warmth that you can get at the same time. Like outside it's cold and brisk, but inside there's like fireplaces, which creates this warm glow. So both holidays create this good aesthetic and setting that can work for the horror genre, because they are images that are instantly appealing, at least for people who celebrate those holidays. But it's in an instant appealing setting, it's something that you can easily draw to, easily connect with. And connection is something that is very important in the horror genre. If you're able to connect with what people are going through in these movies, it makes the horror and the suspense and the tension more effective to you. But the funny thing about Christmas horror movies is, when it comes to Christmas horror, there are usually only a few ways you can go with it. When it comes to Halloween horror movies, there are more ways you can go with that, because there are so many mythical creatures and so much scary things associated with Halloween that there are so many different ways you can go with it. Werewolves, vampires, slasher villains, of course, we all know about Halloween, evil kids, evil trick-or-treaters and stuff like that. But with Christmas, mostly what's associated with that are like evil Santa Clauses and evil elves, evil toys, and things like that. So, not saying you can't have more originality in Christmas, but usually in Christmas horror movies, there's all these, typical ways you go. Like, again, evil Santa Clauses, evil elves, evil toys, things like that. Now, there are a lot of horror movies that have some kind of Christmas element to it that aren't necessarily Christmas horror movies. For something to be a Christmas horror movie, Christmas has to be a major theme of that. Stepping away from the horror genre, many people debate about if Die Hard is a Christmas movie. And, there's people who say it is, there are people who say it ain't. It's still an argument to this day. It went away for a while, but now it's coming back. I am one of those people that thinks Die Hard is a Christmas movie, because Christmas is a huge part of that movie. It's about a man trying to get home for Christmas, and it just so happens to be in a building where there's terrorists. I mean, he's at a Christmas party. You see Christmas lights all over the place. There are plenty moments where they play Christmas music in that movie. So yes, it's and there's different, Christmas, now I have a machine gun, ho, ho, ho. Those different elements. Christmas is a huge part of that movie, which is why it fits as a Christmas film. And then you have a movie like Lethal Weapon. People debate, is that a Christmas movie? I mean, there is some Christmas elements in it, but Christmas doesn't feel like a major part of that movie. Whereas in Die Hard, you see Christmas all over the place, whereas in Lethal Weapon, Christmas is there, but it's more of a in the background, and it's not really focused on as much. That's the same thing with many horror movies. Like, for example, Inside, the French horror movie Inside, which is a fantastic home invasion movie. That movie takes place on Christmas Eve, but I wouldn't really call it a Christmas movie. Like, they mention Christmas Eve maybe 1 or 2 times, but for the most part, you don't even think of the fact that it's Christmas. There's nothing that happens that reminds you that it takes place on Christmas. That situation, it could take place on any day, and it would still work. You're focused so much on, the invasion, the woman trying to... The basic gist of Inside is you have this pregnant woman in her house, and her house is invaded by this crazy woman that wants to cut her baby out of her. And that's what you're thinking about. And you don't notice, like, you constantly forget that it takes place on Christmas, because Christmas is sort of an afterthought in that film. Whereas something like Gremlins, Christmas is all over the place in that movie. Christmas is a core theme in that film. You see Christmas lights, you see the Gremlins attacking a Santa Claus. There's that scene where the Gremlins are singing Christmas carols. So there's there are key elements that you expect to see in Christmas movies that make them a Christmas movie, as opposed to some movies that just so happen to take place on Christmas, but the Christmas parts aren't really the focus. So there's not much else to do except talk about other Christmas horror movies. I mean, like I said, there are plenty out there, but, everybody has their Christmas traditions. Everybody, regardless of what holiday you celebrate or what holiday it is, you have your traditions for that time of year if you celebrate. And we horror fans are no different. We all have our Halloween traditions. We all have our Christmas traditions if we celebrate Christmas. There's the Valentine's traditions. There's the, the summer traditions, the horror movies that you like to watch as it starts getting warmer outside. So, I mean, one of the most common Christmas traditions in terms of movies for horror fans, and plenty other, is, of course, Gremlins. Gremlins is a very fun little creature movie. It's the ultimate little creature movie. And the reason it's so damn enjoyable is, one, it does capture that Christmas atmosphere perfectly. It has that... it is a horror comedy, but it does have that edge to it. You have the horror comedies that focus more on horror, and you have the horror comedies that focus more on comedy. And then something like Gremlins is like right in the middle there. It does lean a little more towards the comedy, but it does have some good tense moments. But it is like, it's the equivalent of A Boy and His Dog movie. This kid gets a new pet, and it's the adventures that happen with that pet. You could put it sort of in the same category as E.T., where, like a kid finds a little animal of some mythical creature and is trying to keep it a secret. But that doesn't fit too well with this one, because his family knows about the gremlin, or knows about the Mogwai. We all know the story of Gremlins. You have this boy named Billy, and during the Christmas season, his father comes home from a trip, and he bought, let's be honest, he stole this creature. He kind of stole it. I mean, he didn't... The sale wasn't legit, but he got this creature that's called a Mogwai, and you have to... And it's, Gizmo, this little creature. The puppetry is fantastic on this animal. And he gives it to his son, and his son loves this little creature, and there are rules that need to be followed for this creature. You don't get him wet, you don't expose him to sunlight, and you don't feed him after midnight. And, of course, there are all, people who question the rules. How does it work if this? How does it work if that? This is a movie that is not taking itself that seriously, so it's the one where you just sit down and enjoy. But as it goes along, each of the rules is broken. When the Mogwai gets wet, it multiplies, and then when they eat after midnight, they turn into these hideous little creatures. And then they run amok across the city, causing a lot of mayhem. This is one of those good gateway horror movies. Like, if you have kids or you have friends that are just getting into the genre, this is one you can show them because it has just enough of an edge to it to be suspenseful, but not so much as to like be too much for someone who hasn't really gotten into the genre yet. It was originally meant to be a much darker movie. The mother in the film was supposed to die. I think the dog was supposed to get beheaded at some point, but they didn't go that far with it. So Gremlins was directed by Joe Dante, who directed one of my favorite Animal Attack movies, Piranha, and my all-time favorite werewolf movie, The Howling. And Gremlins is a lot of fun. The reason this movie is so enjoyable is because, yes, it does capture that Christmas atmosphere, but obviously the Gremlins are the ones who steal the whole show. There's this fun, chaotic nature to the Gremlins that we just enjoy. We want to get along with them. In a way, we're kind of rooting for the monsters, because they just want to have a good time. They just want to have a blast and party, despite the fact that they kill a bunch of people. It is a dark concept. It's these animals, these creatures that want to have fun at the expense of innocent lives. But then you have the other most notorious Christmas horror movie, Black Christmas. Black Christmas, it's a movie that has been underrated and underappreciated for so long, and it's been getting more recognition over the years, and it's grown such a cult following over the years. Black Christmas came out in 1974, and 1974 was one of the most important years for slasher movies. The early 70s in particular was a perfect time for slashers, but in 1974 we got 3 movies that were huge influences on the slasher genre, and the order they came out in, this is the order they came out in: Madhouse, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and Black Christmas. I might have Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Madhouse a bit confused, but both those movies came out before Black Christmas that same year, and each movie is a major influence on the slasher genre. But focusing on Black Christmas, this is like by many, considered the ultimate Christmas horror movie, because it's got that Christmas atmosphere, but it's also incredibly creepy. Like, this is what you talk about when you think of, mixing Christmas with the horror genre. You have Christmas carols, you have the lights all around, you have, like, the opening scene is a Christmas party where the characters are exchanging gifts. The story is very simple. It's you have this sorority house that's getting ready for their Christmas break, and this unknown maniac basically breaks into their house and hides up in their attic, and he's up in that attic throughout the entire film, and that's the movie. It's this sorority house during the Christmas season with a maniac in their house that's killing them one by one. And this is a slasher movie that's all about the creepy atmosphere. It has some funny moments to it, of course, but a lot of horror movies from the 70s and 80s, even the ones that are on the more serious side, did have some funny moments in it, because that's how people are. People like to joke around, they like to be silly, but anyway. But the concept is so simple. Just these people in their house, and there's a guy living in their attic, and they don't know he's up there. That creates this immense sense of dread. I love horror movies that accumulate tension around a specific idea, and in this movie, it's this guy living in the attic, and the people in the house don't know he's there. We've had those horror movies where it's believed that there's something supernatural going on, but then it turns out, oh, there's somebody who's very much alive hiding in the walls. And that can work for a twist, but it's so much more effective when you let people know that there's someone in the walls or in the attic, because then you're nervous. It creates suspense. When is this guy going to attack? Like the movie Bad Ronald, which is a made-for-TV movie from the 70s, involving a kid living in the walls of a house. That idea instantly creates tension. It's always better to let the audience know that there's someone in the walls right from the beginning, or someone in the attic. Now, the killer of this movie is known as Billy. We don't really know if that's the guy's real name, because Billy is one of the most mysterious characters in horror, and he's made all the more terrifying for it. These are kind of spoilers, so spoiler alert, spoiler alert. If you have not seen Black Christmas, do yourself a favor, watch Black Christmas. It's fantastic. But anyway, so with Black Christmas, the character of Billy, Billy, we don't even know if Billy is the character's name. That's sort of been given to him by fans over the years, because we never see the guy's face. Everything is pretty much through the point of view of the killer, or we only see the killer's feet or hands or maybe an eye. We never see the killer, and we never find out who the killer is, and which is amazing. And it's like, he's a horror movie villain that so many people love, but what makes him scary is we can't put a face to him, and that's fantastic. But anyway, he's sort of been given the name Billy because throughout the film, whenever we hear him talk, he says things like, "Agnes, it's me, Billy." And then you get to those very creepy phone calls. This is one of the first horror movies. I don't know if it was the first horror movie, but it was one of the first horror movies that truly used the telephone as a way to cause horror in the film. There were definitely movies before that dealt with, a phone being used for the scares in a movie, but Black Christmas is the one that really, really utilized it, going on to inspire movies like When a Stranger Calls, definitely When a Stranger Calls, and Scream later on. But anyway, like I said, the killer is upstairs in the attic, and he's killing people in the sorority house, and whenever he kills somebody, he then calls the sorority house afterwards, because there's 2 lines in the house, and he just starts giving these creepy, insane monologues. And he's always talking about Billy and Agnes, yelling things like, "Where's the baby?" and stuff like that. And that's what gave him the name Billy. He's like, "Agnes, it's me, Billy," and stuff like that. And people are fairly confident in saying that his name is Billy, which is fine, but I still, I call him Billy too, but I think it's scarier not knowing if Billy is his real name and what's the whole situation with that. And again, it's just all about creating creepy atmosphere and all about creating tension. The first kill in this movie is a woman who is killed by saran wrap and plastic wrap wrapped around her head. And after she's killed during the Christmas party. People are downstairs celebrating a Christmas party. She was packing to go home anyway, so they don't know what's going on with her. After she's killed, the killer puts her up in the attic, and she remains undiscovered throughout the entire film, and that's such good filmmaking, and that's such a frightening concept. But my favorite scene in the movie is the kill that happens during the Christmas carol singing, the caroler kill scene. Our main character, Jess, there's already been quite a bit that has happened in the film, and but long story short, people are locking their doors. The police have put a tap on the phone in the sorority house because of the creepy phone calls that they've been getting and all this. But there's a lot that's been going on. But anyway, there's the character Barb, who is asleep upstairs. She's sleeping. She was been drinking, so she's sleeping off her drunkenness. And Jess is downstairs, and this group of kids come to the house and they start singing a Christmas carol. And as Jess is downstairs listening to this Christmas carol, the killer sneaks into Barb's room and kills her with a little unicorn statue with a point on it and basically stabs her to death. It's so well done and so creepy, and it's that perfect contrast, the joy of Christmas and this horror that's happening right upstairs. Just because it's a joyous time of year does not mean bad things still don't happen. There was a fan-made sequel that came out called, I think it was called It's Me, Billy, and I think that recently had a sequel that came out. I haven't seen them yet. I'm curious to see them, but I've been kind of hesitant for my own reasons, but anyway. And there were 2 remakes that I have not watched. There's a remake from 2006, I believe, and a remake from 2019, which is a name-only remake. I have not seen either of them. I have no interest in seeing the 2019 one. I'm curious about the 2006 one. I just haven't gotten around to watching it yet. But Black Christmas, the original 1970s Black Christmas, such a great horror movie and one of the best Christmas horror movies. And there are plenty more Christmas horror movies out there, but then the angle that you see the most in Christmas horror movies is the evil Santa Claus. Now, of course, you have Krampus, who is in, I think, Germanic legends, you had Santa Claus and then you had Krampus, which was an evil Santa who, Santa Claus would reward good children, Krampus would punish bad kids. And I know there's been quite a few Krampus horror movies that have been made. Most of them are like on the lower budget side, straight to video or streaming or whatever. And then you have Krampus from 2015, I think. That's a movie that it's a pretty divisive horror movie because on the one hand, there are people who don't like it because of the characters, and on the other hand, people enjoy it because of its comedic nature. I am someone who loves Krampus. It is one of my favorite Christmas horror movies, and one of my favorite horror movies from the 2010s, honestly. But it is set up. It is a horror comedy, but it's one of those horror comedies where horror is the point of it. It leans more into the horror than the comedy, but there is still good comedy in it. It is one of those Christmas family horror movies where, you have two families coming together, they don't get along, they're at each other's throats. So I can understand why people don't like this movie. Now, I am one of those people that when every character is an asshole, I tend to not like it. But the thing about Krampus is, one, not all the characters are assholes, and two, yes, we have that moment at the beginning where it seems like this other family that's visiting the main family are all assholes. And that setup is what leads to the summoning of Krampus. You have this little kid, Max, who, he still believes in Santa, but he feels the tension in his family. And then when this other family comes, there's even more tension going on. One thing leads to another, and he basically denounces Christmas, and that is what summons Krampus. That whole thing with this other family being assholes, that is necessary to the film because it's what jumpstarts the horror. But the thing is, all the characters have their redeeming moments. Yes, they're coming across as, like, the other family is coming across as assholes when they first get there, but as soon as the chips are down, they start changing, and then you start feeling the connection between this family, and that other family really steps up. And it's like, okay, we gotta work on this. We gotta get through this together. So all the characters have their redeeming moments. So at the beginning of the movie, you're feeling that he's like, okay, yeah, I don't want these people around here anymore. But then they start redeeming themselves and they start showing themselves as human, and you're like, oh, I actually do care about these characters. And that first part was necessary because it jumpstarts the horror, and then you realize, like, oh shit, we made a mistake here. We're now in danger here. Krampus is a great foreboding character, and it's like we're mostly dealing with his minions before we get to Krampus, which is good. It's a really good build-up. But you have all these like creatures like gingerbread men and all these evil toys and stuff like that, and elves before we truly get to Krampus. So it's a good build-up, and it is a very suspenseful movie. And like I said, it's a horror comedy where horror is the point of it. You're having fun, but there's also a lot of suspense. This is such a fun Christmas horror movie, and like I said, yes, you do have to deal with the obnoxious family at the beginning, but that is important to, one, start the horror, and then realize, oh shit, we made a mistake, because we learn that this family they're actually good people, and they're stepping up to protect the ones they love. That's an interesting way to go, because like I'm one of those people where, like I said, I don't like unlikable characters in my horror movies, but if you can make the unlikable characters interesting and entertaining, then I'm okay with it. But that's an interesting angle to go, making it start out as if these characters are unlikable, but then giving them the redeeming qualities and seeing another side to them, which shows you that it's like, okay, these people are not as bad as we originally thought, and then allowing us to care about them. But then you go into the evil Santa genre, where it's full-blown evil Santa. You know, it's like there's either a person dressed up as Santa Claus killing people or an actual evil Santa. Which, of course, brings us to the most infamous Killer Santa movie, Silent Night, Deadly Night. This movie has gone down in history as one of the most controversial movies ever made. And, yeah, I don't agree with the controversy at all. So the basic plot of the movie is you have this little boy, Billy. When he was a kid, he saw his family get murdered by a man dressed up as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. And then he goes and lives with some nuns, and he is horribly abused by the Mother Superior, who puts it into his head the concept of punishment and how punishment is necessary. And then as he gets older, he's now an adult, or at least pre-adult or whatever, and he is working at a toy store, and during Christmas they force him to dress up as Santa Claus. He snaps with the trauma he suffered as a kid and the abuse that the Mother Superior did to him, and, you know, shoving that concept of punishment into his brain. He goes nuts and goes on a killing spree. Now, of course, there was controversy when this movie came out, because this was a horror movie made for adults. But parents saw it and said, hey, our children should not be scared of Santa, because children love Santa Claus, even though there are numerous videos of kids meeting Santa Claus and being terrified of Santa. But kids love Santa, damn it. But anyway, you know, people were like against the purity of Santa and the purity of Christmas being, you know, done in this way, even though this was a horror movie made for adults and not for kids. See, the thing about Christmas, Silent Night, Deadly Night, New York, anyway, the thing about Silent Night, Deadly Night is there's a rating for Silent Night, Deadly Night, and that rating is R. And an R rating means the movie is not for kids. Now, I am not against kids watching rated R movies. I think if they can handle it, let them enjoy. You know, my brother and I watched rated R movies when we were young, and my brother turned out just fine. But anyway, like, I'm not against kids seeing rated R movies. If they can handle it, if they can enjoy it, let them enjoy it. But, you know, you can't blame a movie for traumatizing your kids. When a director makes a rated R movie, they're not making it for your kids. They're making rated R movies for people who are of age to watch that. When they make a G-rated movie, they're making it for your kids. When they're making a PG movie, they're making it for kids and older people. PG-13 is when, you know, it's a little more risque, but more people are allowed to watch those. But you understand the point here. Silent Night, Deadly Night came out, people saw the advertisements for it, and instead of being parents, the parents decided to blame the movie. Instead of explaining to the kids, hey, this is fiction, this is nothing to be afraid of, it's just a movie, they got mad at the filmmakers and the movie and picketed the film until it was removed from theaters, which bugs the hell out of me. It's just like, hey, instead of asking everybody else to be the parent for you, why don't you be the parent? This was a movie made for adults, and don't let your kids watch a movie made for adults if you don't think they can handle it. If they can handle it, let them watch it. If they can't, don't let them watch it. If something is made for adults, let adults enjoy it. And when I say this, I am not saying this for all parents. This is not aimed at all parents. It's aimed at some parents who think this way. I hate when parents ruin things for adults. That drives me nuts. Adults deserve entertainment too. And it drives me nuts when it's just like, instead of being parents, they blame the movies for it, and they say the movie has to do something to protect my child, instead of you doing the work as a parent and saying, hey, don't watch this movie. I'm sorry about that. I'll get off the soapbox now. Let's get more into Silent Night, Deadly Night. If you want to hear me ramble about it more, oh, I can. But anyway, you know, Silent Night, Deadly Night is a great slasher movie, and it is one of my favorite slashers because of how they handle the killer. Maniac is obviously one of my favorite horror movies of all time. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. And I love that movie because, like, it is a serial killer movie, but it is put in the slasher genre. It follows the slasher. This is a movie about the slasher. And that's the same way with Silent Night, Deadly Night. This is a movie where we're not only following the slasher, we see what happened to this guy, to the character of Billy, that made him into a psychopath, that made him into a killer. And that's so interesting, and that's so fascinating. And it is a damn good slasher movie because we do get a decent body count. It does take a little while to get to the body count because we're focusing on Billy's rise to adulthood and descent into madness, which is very important for this movie. It's like the psychological elements and seeing Billy grow up and, the things that happened to him that made him into this killer is just as interesting and just as good as the kills in the film. I don't think Silent Night, Deadly Night would be nearly as effective if we did not see that build-up to the kills. And it is refreshing to see a horror movie or a slasher movie that goes a different direction with it. It's like, okay, we're going to follow the killer. We're going to show what made the killer into a killer. That's just that's a really interesting way to go. And an interesting fact here is Silent Night, Deadly Night came out the same weekend as A Nightmare on Elm Street and outperformed A Nightmare on Elm Street for a bit. But it needs to be taken into consideration that Silent Night, Deadly Night was released in more theaters than Nightmare on Elm Street. And after a couple weeks, it dropped significantly in profits. Now, you could attribute that to the picketing and people demanding that it be taken out of theaters, but, Nightmare on Elm Street, it's Nightmare on Elm Street, one of the most popular horror movies with one of the most iconic characters out there. So, yeah, but it is interesting that Silent Night, Deadly Night outperformed Nightmare on Elm Street for a week or two. Now, Silent Night, Deadly Night, it's a fantastic Christmas slasher, it's a fantastic evil Santa Claus movie, but my favorite horror movie to watch around Christmas, other than Black Christmas, I watch Black Christmas every year, but my second favorite movie to watch around Christmas is Christmas Evil. In terms of killer Santa movies, in terms of evil Santa movies, Christmas Evil is my favorite. And I'm not counting Terrifier 3, because while Art the Clown in that movie does dress up as Santa, I don't consider that a killer Santa movie. And I'm not going to talk about Terrifier 3 in this video too much, because I'm going to be talking about Terrifier 3 in a video closer to the end of the year. Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, say no more. But anyway, Christmas Evil. This is one of my favorite Christmas horror movies. It's like you have Black Christmas, and Christmas Evil is up there. It's at least in my top 4, 3. And it's my favorite evil Santa movie. The thing about Christmas Evil, which could turn people off who watch it, is Christmas Evil, a lot of people, it's like kind of in a way advertised as a slasher movie. It's categorized in the slasher genre, and a lot of people go into Christmas Evil expecting a slasher movie. And it's important to realize that Christmas Evil is not a slasher movie. There are kills in this movie, but Christmas Evil is not a slasher movie. Christmas Evil is a psychological horror movie, and if you go into it expecting a psychological horror film, you will have a much better time, and you will enjoy the movie much better, and you'll be drawn into the story a lot more. Don't go in expecting a high body count. Do not go in expecting a slasher film. Do not go in expecting Silent Night, Deadly Night. Go in expecting a psychological Christmas horror movie, and I guarantee you will enjoy it a lot more. So, Christmas Evil follows a man named Harry Stadling. Now, when Harry was a kid, he witnessed his dad dressed as Santa Claus having sex with his mom, which ended up scarring him. That's in a way, that's how he found out Santa wasn't real, because he saw mommy fucking Santa Claus. And, anyway, so that scarred him, but it also created this obsession with Santa Claus. As he gets older, he ends up working at a toy factory, and, like I said, he develops this obsession with Santa Claus, this very unhealthy obsession with Santa Claus. He watches the kids in his neighborhood, a little too close for comfort, like not getting in there, but he's got binoculars and stuff like that, and he's writing down the kids' names in a book, writing down a list of good kids and a list of bad kids. Like I said, watching the children in the neighborhood, it gets to the point where, as we get to Christmas Eve, he dresses up as Santa Claus and goes out giving gifts to people, but also punishing people he thinks are bad. In a way, it is the same as Silent Night, Deadly Night, but Silent Night, Deadly Night came out in 1984. Christmas Evil came out in 1988. And I personally do think Christmas Evil is the best movie, because in Christmas Evil, in Silent Night, Deadly Night, Billy is forced to dress up as Santa Claus. He goes nuts and starts killing people. In Christmas Evil, Harry is truly trying to become Santa Claus. It's a descent into madness movie, but in a way, it's a descent into Santa movie. And that's such an interesting aspect. It's creepy because you have this grown man watching the kids and looking to punish the kids that he thinks are naughty and reward the kids who he thinks are good. And he also, there are instances where he kills people that he views are bad. It's like there are some, they're not flashy deaths, but they are kind of brutal, raw deaths. Like one of my favorite scenes, which is, interesting and very creepy, is when he is, transforming himself into Santa Claus. He glues a beard onto his face. And it's this amazing moment where he starts pulling at the beard and he can't get it off because he glued it on, and he starts laughing because it's like, and it's kind of this creepy, insane laugh, but it's not like, it's like, because he's just so thrilled by the fact that he now has this beard on his face and he's slowly becoming Santa Claus, which is the image or the entity that he admires so much. Like, there's one moment where he's donating toys to a children's factory, and then there's another moment where he kills a bunch of people in front of a church. But again, don't expect a high body count. It's a relatively low body count, not like incredibly low, but it is a low body count. The kills are not the focus of this movie. It's Harry's descent into Santa. And it is one of those movies that builds tension around a certain idea. It's like, Harry thinks he's Santa Claus, and he's also this mentally unwell person. There's this interesting scene where right after he kills a few people, he runs away, and then he's brought into this Christmas party, and the kids see them, and he's happy, and everybody starts celebrating with him because he's dressed up as Santa. Nobody wants to think Santa is going to hurt them, or somebody dressed as Santa is going to hurt them, so they're celebrating with Santa, and he's celebrating with everybody. He's dancing with the kids, he's dancing with the people, having a good time, invited to this party for being Santa. And none of them know that a few moments ago, he murdered some people. That's some of my favorite, or at least the moments in, some of the moments that I find the creepiest in serial killer movies, not that this is a serial killer movie, but some of the moments that I find the creepiest in serial killer movies is when we see the killer being a normal person, interacting with people, living a seemingly normal life, like going out to dinner and, like I said, interacting with people as if they're a normal person, and that's scary to us because we know what they're really like when no one else is watching. And so this scene, it's both kind of whimsical and fun because we see him being accepted by people where he was an outcast, but now he's being accepted by people as Santa Claus, but we know he just killed a bunch of people. We know this guy is not right. And because of that off-kilter nature to him, there are moments where he breaks into somebody's house, or he breaks into certain people's houses, and you don't know, is he just going to leave gifts, or is he going to kill somebody? And as the, movie goes on, more and more people start becoming afraid of somebody dressed up as Santa Claus killing people, and in the third act, it turns into like a Frankenstein movie where angry mobs grab their torches and pitchforks and they're chasing after Harry as he's running through the streets dressed up as Santa Claus. There are so many good moments in here. The ending, I think, is fantastic. I'm not going to spoil it here, but I love a good final image, and this has one of the best final images. This is John Waters' favorite Christmas movie. John Waters is my favorite director, and this is his favorite Christmas movie, so what higher praise could you get than that? The Pope of Trash says that this movie is a classic, and you should watch it too. But yeah, Christmas Evil. I cannot stress enough, do not go into Christmas Evil expecting a slasher movie. Go into Christmas Evil expecting a psychological horror movie. It is, without a doubt, my favorite evil Santa movie. So yeah, like my two favorite Christmas horror movies are Black Christmas and Christmas Evil. Those two are great, and that's like my favorite double feature to watch this time of year. But yeah, Christmas Evil, I cannot recommend it enough. It's a good, creepy, suspenseful, psychological horror movie. A good psychological Christmas horror movie. Now, there are plenty of other Christmas horror movies out there, and, I could talk about plenty more. A Christmas Horror Story is one of them. That's a fantastic Christmas anthology. Rare Exports, I saw that once a while ago. I haven't seen it in a while. I was a little disappointed by that, but a lot of people seem to enjoy it, so by all means check that one out. And various other Christmas horror movies out there, which I'm not going to get into now because this video will be incredibly long. But yeah, those are some of my favorite Christmas horror movies, and those are some of my thoughts on Christmas horror movies. So we're just starting the Christmas season. I don't know if I'll talk about more Christmas horror movies or not. I kind of just like to talk about the stuff that I want, regardless of what time of year it is. But anyway, yeah, Christmas horror movies. Let me know some of your favorite Christmas horror movies, and let me know your thoughts on Christmas horror movies. I do enjoy a good Christmas horror movie, but I would like to see other holiday horror movies just for the sake of getting more variety in the horror genre. That's good stuff. But anyway, yeah. Thank you so much for joining me in this episode of Horror Talk. I do hope to do more of these next year. Leave a comment down below, like I said, your favorite Christmas horror movies, your thoughts on Christmas horror movies. Let me know some other ideas you would like me to do for a horror talk. I do want to do a horror talk on jump scares sometime. I just need to get my thoughts together for that. But yeah, we're just getting started in this holiday season. Please visit the link down below to the Animal Rescue League of Boston. Like I said, it's it's an organization that I highly support, and I'm going to be shouting them out in my videos for the rest of the year. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Horror Talk. Thank you all so much for the continued support. I do truly appreciate it. Like, again, the fact that people take time out of their day to watch my videos truly does mean a lot to me, because there's so much other stuff you could be doing other than coming to my little corner of the internet. But I do truly appreciate it. Thank you all so much. And until next time, this is the Maniac, here to remind you that the Grindhouse will never die.